Namaste, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to talk about the greatest festival on earth. At the time when this is recorded, it is Makar Sankranti. Makar Sankranti, when the Uttarayana, or the northward course of the sun, is celebrated. So some call it Pongal, some call it Khichdi, some call it Makara Sankranti. It is a Hindu festival marking the entry of the sun into the constellation of Makara. Makara, which we know in English as Capricorn, which is from the Latin Capricornus. And that means the goat-horned one. It signifies a goat, but with a fish tail. Sankranti means a transition from one state to another. And so in astrology it means the transition from one sign to another, from one constellation to another. In the Babylonian template, where this all originates, where the zodiac comes from, this constellation is depicted as a mountain goat with a fish tail. In India, that becomes any sea animal emerging from the sea. So this can be a crocodile, but it can also be a dolphin. The strange fact about Makar Sankranti is that on that day people celebrate the Uttarayana. Uttarayana means the northward course, namely of the sun, which for 6 months has been going southward from its passage over the Tropic of Cancer in June. It has gone through the summer and autumn, and it has ended up on 21st of December at the point where it reverses course and goes back to the north. So the northward course, and particularly the beginning of that on 21st of December, is called Uttarayana. Now, why is an event taking place on the 21st of December celebrated on the 14th of January, at least in India? The answer is that this is an astronomical mistake. Nothing serious, but it just happened. In about 150 before the Common Era, Hipparchus of Alexandria discovered that there are two zodiacs, 2 year cycles that shift slowly vis-a-vis one another. So slowly that you don't notice. And that until then, nobody on the world had noticed. See, he was the first to discover it. You have 2 cycles. One is the cycle of the seasons that everyone can see, that astrologers might also translate into heavenly signs, the so-called signs of the tropical zodiac. Tropic, as you know, is derived from the tropics, that is to say the circles of Capricorn and Cancer, the most northerly and the most southerly point of where the sun passes. So one is the Rtu Chakra, the cycle of the seasons, or the Sayana Rashi Chakra, which is called the tropical zodiac. The other one is the cycle that you can see in the sky of the actual visible constellations. This is called in India the Nirayana Rashi Chakra, or the sidereal zodiac. Now, the Uttarayana, the day when the sun turns to the north, is part of the cycle of the seasons, or the tropical zodiac. It is always on the 21st of December. By contrast, Makar Sankranti, the entry into the constellation of Capricorn, moves with the constellations, moves as part of the Nirayana Rashi Chakra. In about the 3rd century of our era, this Babylonian Hellenistic astrology was introduced into India. Mind you, India already had its own astrology, a Vedic astrology, based on the moon and on the lunar houses, 28 or 27 lunar houses. That is, of course, tied to the constellations. That is entirely sidereal. But it is a different system from the one we are now talking about. So a new system was introduced, the zodiac, the Hellenistic astrology. And at that time, it just so happened that the Uttarayana point, where the sun starts to move north, coincided with the entry point into the constellation of Capricorn. The two got identified, understandably, but wrongly. Now, at that time, it posed no problem, but the shift continued. The constellations moved away from this point in the seasonal cycle. So Makara moved on and started to take distance from the Uttarayana. 17 centuries later, this amounted to 24 degrees, or roughly expressed in days, 24 days. Indian astrologers often mistakenly thought that Uttarayana had moved along, and so they celebrate Uttarayana on the 14th of January. So 21st December became 14th of January. Among rationally minded Hindus, there exists a movement to correct the date. And they want to move it back to the actual winter solstice on 21st of December. Other Hindus think that the weight of tradition is such that these things can't be changed. Now, me personally, as an outsider, I do not want to judge. I leave it open to the Hindus themselves to decide. But at any rate, there is no reason for stopping your celebration of this festival. Indeed, if I may have at least an opinion on this, I think you should continue to celebrate it, that you should continue to fly kites, which is the main ritual on the Makar Sankranti day, and then all the rest of the rituals. So whether you celebrate it on 14th of January or on the 21st of December, it is important to keep on celebrating it, to fly kites on that day. And it doesn't matter which of these 2 days you choose, because your enemies are going to struggle against it and try to suppress it either way. Indeed, you see, all this needs saying that it is worth celebrating Makar Sankranti, because the anti-Hindu forces are very seriously trying to suppress Makar Sankranti. Others want to perpetuate it, and the general reason for perpetuating anything is the joy that it gives. For example, Friedrich Nietzsche, the German philosopher, said, "Alle Lust will Ewigkeit," which means all pleasures want eternity. Or, as a totally different source, physical science says, if not interfered with, then any existing motion will continue unchanged. That is called the law of inertia. So continuing to celebrate this festival is the most natural thing to do. It needs no justification. On the contrary, discontinuing the festival, that would require justification. Now, the anti-Hindu forces, or the so-called secularists, have indeed thought up some reasons, some innocent-looking reasons, some benign-sounding reasons to suppress this festival. So they say, well, they might say that the astronomical confusion that I just sketched, that classes the festival as unscientific, as irrational or something, provided at least they know about this astronomical problem, because probably they don't. What they preferably use is something totally different. Namely, they try to take the moral high ground and pretend that they are protecting animals. Now, where do animals figure in this, you might ask? There are Hindu festivals that involve animals, but this one doesn't. They say, well, you people fly kites, and sometimes a bird flies into a kite and dies. So, in fact, flying kites constitute cruelty against animals. So they hide their will to harm Hinduism, to destroy Hinduism, behind this innocent-looking veneer, this benign-looking veneer of care for animals, care for the environment. And so they suggest, well, it's all very simple. You see, as soon as you stop celebrating Makar Sankranti, then no more kites will be flown, and then no more birds will die. Well, in that case, let us wonder. First of all, will people really stop flying kites if it is not for Makar Sankranti? I have flown plenty of kites in my life, many of them even before I had ever heard of Makar Sankranti. And I'm sure that in India too, many millions of people are like that. So they will continue to fly kites. Anyway, what about abolishing air travel? All the armies in the world have aircraft. Civil airplanes fly all the time, transporting people from Australia to New York, wherever. And so, while rising, while landing, they kill plenty of birds. So many, many, many more birds can be saved by stopping flights than by stopping kites. The secularists will say, yeah, but flights, they are at least useful, and they are modern, they are scientific, not this ridiculous superstition of Hindu festivals. Now, what about abolishing meat consumption? You see, aircraft at least, they are relatively innocent when killing birds. They don't mean to kill birds, it just happens by accident. By contrast, in the meat industry, millions upon millions, untold millions of animals are slaughtered purposely. So shouldn't we stop that? Now, if you say that in India to a secularist, he will say, hey, wait a minute. You see, the Dalits and all the poor people, they need to have meat, to consume beef, and you want to deny them that. You see, ugly Brahmins who want to oppress the Dalits, you see, they want to deny them even meat consumption. So don't hide behind saving animals, to stop meat consumption. No, we need meat consumption. Well, okay, you see, if things that are useful are above the question of whether they should be allowed or not, then let's take something entirely non-useful, something superstitious, another religious festival. I won't name the festival, you all know it. It is a festival celebrated worldwide in which millions and millions of sheep are slaughtered. What have these concerned citizens done about that? Have they ever campaigned to abolish that festival? Well, you see, if you merely say that, immediately they will shoot back. But treating Hindus and minorities on the same footing is communal. So they have their reasons to oppose a Hindu festival, and it won't stop at Makar Sankranti. So there are other festivals in a somewhat similar situation. For example, in Naga Panchami, snakes are celebrated. In this local Tamil festival of Jallikattu, bulls are, in a way, celebrated. They are fought. You could say it's a bullfight, except that bulls aren't being killed the way they are in Spain. On Naga Panchami, similarly, snakes are not being killed. Yet they will say, oh, but it is animal mistreatment. And that's bad enough for their tender souls. Processions for Durga, for Ganesha, for any of the deities, they pollute the river, because at the end, the idol is immersed in the river. On Deepavali, you have firecrackers, and they pollute the air. And on Holi, you use paint, you spray paint. And nowadays, this paint is often of industrial provenance, so it also pollutes the environment. And we need not stop at environmentalism. So many evil things are the case with Hindu festivals. For example, you may have heard of Raksha Bandhan, when sisters tie a rakhi, a little thread, around the wrist of their brothers, when they ask for protection and offer good advice. Now that is a very stereotypical role division between the sexes. You see, that gravely underestimates the agency, the power to act of women. They can fend for themselves, they don't need your protection. And so, this is a very sexist festival that we better abolish. Or Vijayadashami, that celebrates the victory by Rama, a North Indian hero, against Ravana, the South Indian champions of Dravidian pride, defeated by the Aryan hero Rama. That is obviously racist, and that should be done away with. It is also said that Uttarayana, or winter solstice as we call it in the West, that this Uttarayana is an unimportant local festival. You see, it doesn't really matter if we abolish it. Nobody will notice, so unimportant is it. Now in reality, Uttarayana, or winter solstice, the birth of the sunlight, is naturally the main festival in all cultures, especially in cultures that function with nature. In cultures that already have a lot of history, urban cultures with reading, history becomes more important. Like, for example, Independence Day in India is celebrated on the day when it just happens to have taken place. It was on the 15th August, so it is henceforth celebrated on 15th August. By contrast, in nature, well, nature has its own laws. And you celebrate Uttarayana on the day when Uttarayana takes place, when it is the shortest day of the year. And so everybody worldwide notices that. So it is a festival celebrated by everyone. For example, in Goseck in Germany, you have an ancient wood henge, as it is called, a wood circle. Now they tend to decay after a while, so it had to be discovered underground, but it has been reconstructed with new, modern, healthy wood put in place. And it shows already that the principal festival celebrated at that time, almost 7,000 years ago, was the winter solstice. The second, incidentally, is May Day, around the 1st of May, because at that time the light is already much stronger, but still getting even stronger. You see, the summer solstice would be a doubtful festival because at that time the descent into darkness starts. It is the lightest, the longest day of the year, all right, but for the same reason why winter solstice is celebrated, summer solstice is a bit doubtful because at that time the descent into darkness starts. But so the most remarkable day before summer solstice, namely May Day, that would be a good second festival. But the principal festival is winter solstice. Here you have a Stonehenge, the famous British site, where a stone circle is clearly aligned with the sunrise on the shortest day of the year. You have similar stone circles all over Europe. When Christianity came, they didn't simply abolish this festival, no, they transformed it into their own festival of Christmas. But this is full of symbols reminding us of this pagan celebration. You all know the Christmas tree, originally called the Yule tree. The festival was called Yule. And so it takes over the symbolism. What was originally the rebirth of the sun, of the light, becomes the festival of the birth of Jesus. It still uses the Yule tree as a symbol. The Yule tree symbolizes the Earth's axis which points in a straight line to the pole star, which is why a Christmas tree or a Yule tree is adorned with a star on top. Outside Europe, it doesn't stop. Even there you have these stone circles that have an alignment either to the equinox, the axis of the beginning of spring and autumn, or the solstitial axis, the one between the longest and the shortest day of the year. For example, here we see a picture of Sudan, where you have such a stone circle, but they are also to be found in Indonesia, in America, in Japan, and in India. Indeed, the subcontinent is full of megaliths. Most of them are in the countryside, in forests and so on. You may not much notice them, but they are there. And they are venerated by tribals as well as by local Hindus, in the event that you insist on making a distinction between the two. For example, we have a stone circle here in Asota in Pakistan, or in Punkri in Jharkhand, or in Nuiralu in Andhra. They have been photographed and discovered, or at any rate researched, investigated by Subhashish Das. I want to mention him because the work he's doing for Indian heritage is very important. So in all these places, you have a memory of a celebration of the winter solstice, which often came in the form, or which left us a memory in the form of megalithic structures. Some megalithic structures have a different meaning, for example, as funeral structures, but others specifically are imagery reminding us of the year cycle, and therein specifically the winter solstice festival. So, what is Uttarayana really? According to the secularists, the missionaries, the social justice warriors, I suppose also the bird watchers and other concerned citizens, Uttarayana is a deceptive concoction by the evil, wily Brahmins who are armed with kites. Watch out for them, they are armed with kites. And they want to commit genocide on a heretofore unsuspected minority, namely the poor, hapless birds. Now, in reality, it is just a completely natural, innocent festival celebrated worldwide by all classes of people, all forest dwellers, all peasants, all city dwellers, They join in the fun. Let's go fly.